You've heard of giants, right? Well, I faced one, with nothing but a sling and a whole lot of faith. Want to hear what happened?
Once upon a time, in the hills of ancient Israel, there lived a young boy named David. He was the youngest in a big family, 8 brothers in total. While his older brothers were off doing important things like fighting in the army, David stayed home, watching over his father's sheep. Now, being a shepherd wasn't easy. He had to guide the sheep to water, protect them from wild animals, and make sure none wandered away. But David took it seriously. Out there in the quiet fields, under the sun and stars, David learned to be brave and calm. And most of all, he learned to trust God. He often played songs on his harp, prayed, and spent time with the Lord. David didn't look important, but his heart was strong with faith. One day, everything changed. The Israelites, God's people, were at war with their enemies, the Philistines. The 2 armies stood on opposite hills, facing each other across a wide valley. But the Philistines had a secret weapon, a giant named Goliath. He was enormous, more than 9 feet tall, covered in bronze armor from head to toe. He carried a massive spear, and his voice thundered across the valley. Every morning, for 40 days, Goliath came out and shouted, "Send me a man to fight. If he beats me, we'll serve you. But if I win, you serve us." And every time, the Israelite soldiers trembled with fear. Even King Saul was too afraid to face him. Meanwhile, back in Bethlehem, David was still tending the sheep. One day, his father Jesse called him over. "David," he said, "take this bread and cheese to your brothers at the battlefield. See how they're doing." So David set off with food in hand. When he arrived at the camp, he heard the giant's voice echoing once again, and he saw the Israelite soldiers backing away, hiding, afraid. Soon, word reached King Saul, and before long, David was standing in front of the king himself. "I'll fight him," David said. Saul blinked. "You can't be serious. You're just a kid. He's been a warrior all his life." But David stood tall. "When I watched over my father's sheep, I fought off lions and bears. God helped me then. He'll help me now." King Saul looked at the boy and saw something none of his soldiers had: faith. "Go," he said at last, "and may the Lord be with you." Saul offered David his royal armor, but it was way too big. The helmet slipped over David's eyes. The sword dragged on the ground. David smiled politely. "I can't wear this. I'm not used to it." So he took off the armor, picked up his sling, and walked to a nearby stream. There he chose 5 smooth stones and placed them in his pouch. Then, with only his sling in hand, David walked into the valley to face the giant. Goliath saw him and burst out laughing. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" he roared. "Come here, I'll feed you to the birds." But David didn't flinch. He shouted back, "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. Today God will hand you over to me. Everyone will know. The battle belongs to the Lord." David ran forward. He reached into his pouch, pulled out a stone, placed it in his sling, and began to swing it around, faster and faster, until he let it fly straight toward the giant. Thwack! The stone hit Goliath square in the forehead. The giant stopped, staggered, and fell face first to the ground with a mighty crash. The Philistines gasped in shock. Their champion was defeated. They turned and ran, and the Israelites shouted in victory, chasing them away. David, the boy shepherd, had won, not with armor, not with a sword, but with courage, faith, and the help of God. Years later, David would become Israel's greatest king. But on that day, he showed everyone that being young or small doesn't mean you're weak, because with God by your side, you are never alone. Sometimes life brings us challenges that seem too big, like a giant standing in front of us. But just like David, we don't have to face them alone. With faith, courage, and a heart that trusts God, we can stand tall, no matter how big the problem may be. So, the next time you feel afraid or think you're too small to make a difference, remember this: God doesn't need you to be the strongest. He just needs you to believe. And that is the story of David and Goliath. Thanks for watching, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe for more amazing Bible stories.